Broadcasting live from the Brooks Robinson Plaza Studios of WOYK. Welcome to Revs Friday Night Live on Sports Radio 1350. Kicking off your baseball weekend early with all the hot topics, interviews, and latest news on York's home team and from around the league. Now, here are your hosts of Revs Friday Night Live, Darrell Henry, Paul Braverman, and Ray Jensen.
And good Friday, everyone. Welcome in as we start off your Revs weekend, your Memorial Day weekend. Here with the Revs Friday Night Live in our third edition, our third Friday home weekend here at Santander Stadium. Darrell Henry along with the aforementioned Paul Braverman and Ray Jensen. And our special guest on this week's program is in studio with us, Shawn Hill. He will be forced to sit and listen to us babble for the first segment before we welcome him in. But good evening, guys, and hopefully this weekend the Revs get well here at home. A big one with Somerset coming in. Big showdown here this weekend.
Yeah, it's an important series for the Revolution. Obviously, the struggles at home have been well documented, but the team's winning on the road. So, I think that's bound to even out after a while. Stranding 12 runners yesterday, it's only a matter of time before a couple of those big hits get strung together, and we're not, leaving guys on base anymore. I say we. I have nothing to do with the good or bad, of course, but still like this team. I think it's a good clubhouse. I think Shawn will agree when we talk to him in the next segment. And, you look at our position group up and down, doesn't look like a lot of holes there, and we're getting great starts. Matt Neal had his first start yesterday. He was solid, and we're getting good starts up and down the rotation. Rami, is up towards the top of the league in wins. We haven't given this guy next to us very much run support, but he's thrown the ball well, of course. And Anthony LaRue has been striking a lot of guys out. So I don't know, Darrell. I mean, this is, 2 shows in a row where I'm refusing to give in to panic. And I'm going to stay with that. I'm just going to stay with that, and we'll check in again in 2 weeks. The one thing I'm not going to do is prognosticate, because I was feeling really good 2 weeks ago after the first ever road sweep at Lancaster, and I boldly proclaimed that we'd take 3 or 4 from Southern Maryland, and then we got swept in 4 at home for the first time in franchise history. So no prognostication today, but I expect on a holiday weekend, good crowds, and it should be hopefully a fast start for York.
The weather's great, which is nice. We are expecting big crowds this weekend, so it should be really good energy here in the park. And, if I had to make a prediction, I would predict that, I know you don't want to prognosticate anything, but my prediction would be that in a month or so, or even a couple of weeks, nobody will even be talking about this losing streak at home any longer.
Well, I hope so. And, we've talked about it off air plenty of times. We had that team in 2012, which reminded me a lot of this team. It was a good clubhouse. It was a good mix of veterans and younger guys. We've got some young guys on this club. Proscia, Mikey Reynolds have joined us, since the season began. And that team started off 3-10. I mean, they were off to a much worse start than this year's club. And it was amazing looking that up in the media guide, because I had no recollection whatsoever that team started so poorly. And that club in 2012, 79 wins, right?
Yep.
Had the best regular season win total in Revolution history. So May can seem like a long, long time ago once you get down to the end of the year. So,
and actually, that team, I'm trying to think the best way to put this, that York tonight comes in at 10-16. That team, when they had 16 losses, only had 8 wins.
Yeah.
And that team, when they had 10 wins, had 17 losses. So they actually were, worse off.
Right.
And went on to have the most wins in a regular season in team history. And our guest here in studio had a big hand in that once he joined the rotation as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, road wins. The cliche goes, if you can go 500 on the road and win your home games, you'll be fine. And we've been better than 500 on the road. We had that one blip in Somerset, but we got the big hit on the road. In the Lancaster series. The Sugarland series, was great. LaMonta was on fire in that series. Mikey Reynolds had a 12-game hit streak through that series. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, I've seen worse. I mean, we could see pretty clearly to go back in history again that the 2009 team, that their struggles were well documented. You could see pretty early that wasn't going to be a club that was going to be competitive. The first half in 2008, I think, was the same thing, and then we retooled, and it was a much better club in the second half that year. And I don't get that sense with this team right now. I think those 2 years it was kind of obvious that it was going to be a tough year, but I think this year is very much like 2012, and we had a lot of veterans in the rotation that year that pulled us out of it. Ryan Fierabend was here, Chris Cody was here, and a lot of veterans in this rotation as well, guys with big league time like that I think will balance us out. So
yeah, well, coming up later in the show, we'll have highlights from the road trip gone by, and like we said, Revs trying to get off the schneid here at home. They'll have 4 against Somerset beginning tonight. By the way, you can indulge us and come wave at the window and make us feel like we're, hosting the Today Show or something.
We've had a couple already.
Had a couple.
Kid on a scooter. We'll take it.
Couple looky-loos
Yep.
outside the window here. But we are live from our Brooks Robinson Plaza studios. You can follow us on air. You might be on your way into the ballpark. You can hear us on the plaza. As you're walking up to the stadium tonight, you can hear us on the mobile apps as well. And, Paul, some big roster news today also for the Revs. And, Sandy De Leon was here to fill a void when De La Cruz was injured, so we knew that he was going to be heading back home to New York. He was released today. The whole release term sounds bad, but everybody knew, he was here just to fill a void for a week. So he heads home to open up a roster spot. Julio De Paula has his contract purchased by the Mexican League. That opens up another spot. And the Revs making 2 big additions today, as we have a couple fans out front here. Hi from Section 4. Hello to Section 4. Go Revs. Cannonball Crazies. We appreciate it.
Hashtag Cannonball Crazies.
Hashtag. Yep, throw that in. But 2 potentially impact additions, Paul, with Shannon Wilkerson, who we will see make his Revs debut in center field tonight, and Brad Bergeson, who's got some York ties and obviously pitched for the Orioles and will be remembered fondly as a young pitcher there who performed pretty well in Baltimore. He joins the bullpen as well.
Yep, Shannon Wilkerson will bat ninth and play center field tonight. Red Sox AAA guy, solid pro career so far, so he's going to be a candidate to be an everyday type of guy for us, most likely. So it'll be fun to see him in action tonight. He'll get thrown in there right away on his first day on the club. And Brad Bergeson, first year in the majors in 2009, was called up from Norfolk, made 19 starts for the Orioles, went 7-5 with an ERA in the low 3s. So he was off to a very impressive start, was a workhorse the following year, made 28 starts for Baltimore, last in the big leagues in 2012, coming out of Arizona's bullpen. So, a guy who put up pretty good major league numbers and then all of a sudden, didn't find himself with a spot. But, hey, that's baseball. Many are called, few are chosen, and it's tough to stay up like that. And he is a guy who's coming back from an injury year and a guy who hopefully will be a candidate like our guest in studio today to get picked up with a few more performances in York. But nevertheless, it's fun for the fans. Obviously, Orioles country, they know Brad Bergeson with them recently. One of the bigger names we've had here as far as ex-Orioles go in the last couple of years. So that'll be a fun thing for the fans. I'm sure he'll draw some traffic for those lovely Sunday autograph sessions. And, could be a nice addition to the Revolution bullpen. He's had a layoff, but he came up here to throw a bullpen for Mace. So Mace liked what he saw, despite him being having a long layoff. So interesting addition. That one came suddenly today, but good, solid citizen to add to the clubhouse as well. Hadn't been able to talk to everybody about what Bergeson brings to the room, but. If Mace is still talking with Etch semi-regularly, he would come very, very highly recommended from Andy Etchebarren with Brad Bergeson. Etch managed him in the minor leagues and was really high on him and always had good things to say about him on what kind of guy he was. So it doesn't surprise me that he landed here after a layoff to try to get it going again.
Yeah, and I know it's several years ago, but his rookie year in 2009, he was off to a fantastic start, and as memory serves, he took like a line drive off his shin that shortened his season.
And it's so typical that one nagging injury like that, and something that's not your fault, that's just a freak, comebacker can kind of put a career on hold or, make a guy who looked like a guy that would start 30 games a season in the big leagues. All of a sudden, he's back and forth between AAA. If he had options left, which he did during all 3 years he was in Baltimore. He was on the Baltimore to Norfolk train quite a bit for those 3 years, but pitched well in the big leagues in a relief role and a starting role. 102 major league games Bergeson has, 59 starts, so he's going to come out of the bullpen, according to Mace, to begin, which is no surprise, coming off a layoff, but, maybe we'll see him spot start later in the year if we have a guy signed or there's an injury or something like that. I wouldn't rule it out.
I like some of the young talent that's especially been added since the season has begun. I mean, we've seen what Mikey Reynolds has done.
Proscia made a nice play at third yesterday. It might have been late in the game in a losing effort, but that was an impressive play on the run.
Thought he's only got one hit so far, but he looks like he can handle the bat well.
Yeah.
There were a few tough sliders, for instance, that he didn't even budge on.
So. Well, he's got a big upper body, 68 career home runs in 4 professional seasons. That's 17 a year.
Yeah.
He's a guy that
28 1 year,
28 in one season. Yep. And so that's a guy who can put the bat on the ball pretty well. And the thing about Bergeson, he's a guy that has been known to Oriole fans for a few seasons now, and going back all the way to the early mid 2000s with that organization as a draft pick and a minor leaguer. But he's only 29. I mean, it's not like it's not like he's coming in here at 38 years old to play his final season. He's a guy that could very well use York as a springboard back to the big leagues. I mean, we've had 8 guys do it, including our guest in studio today. So, it can happen fast when you string a few good appearances together, as we saw with Shawn Hill a few years ago. So,
yeah. Well, an exciting news day for sure. And let's go to our first break, and we will chat with our guest here in studio, Shawn Hill, coming up. And a myriad of topics that I know are on the docket for Mr. Hill. So we will interrogate him as only we can here on Revs Friday Night Live as we get you set to start off Memorial Day weekend here at the ballpark. You're listening here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
Yeah, that's stupid. You got me all confused now.
Don't worry, we'll be right back after these messages. You're listening to Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
I'm Kevin Kugler with This Week in the NCAA on Westwood One. The spring sports postseason is in full stride this week, and today we catch you up on the latest news, including a big week for tennis, as the Division I and II titles are both in the books. For the D1 women, it was a very good week for the Vanderbilt Commodores. After sweeping past the top-seeded USC Trojans 4-0 in the semifinals, the 4th-seeded Commodores met the defending champs UCLA in the finals. A 4-2 win over the Bruins gave Vanderbilt their first ever title in tennis and the school's 3rd overall national championship. The other 2 title trophies came in 2007 with bowling and, of course, last June in the Baseball College World Series. For the D1 men, the 3rd seed Virginia Cavaliers claimed their 2nd title in the sport with a 4-1 win over Oklahoma. The Cavs clinched the trophy when senior Mitchell Frank, ranked 20th in singles, won the final singles match and the tournament most outstanding player honors. Moving to D2, the undefeated men from Berry University of Florida ousted top seed Hawaii Pacific 5-3 to claim their 3rd title and their 2nd in 3 years. The 2013 Berry Buccaneers title team also finished the season undefeated. The D2 Berry women also made it to the finals this week as the 2 seed, but they came up short as the Armstrong State Pirates claimed the title and ended their season at a perfect 33-0. It's the Pirates' 9th title in women's tennis. Coming up, we head to the lacrosse pitch on This Week in the NCAA.
How fast are new Allegra gel caps?
I didn't know you got a cat fast.
How strong are new Allegra gel caps?
10 more lawns to go strong.
Non-drowsy Allegra gives you noticeable relief of your toughest allergy symptoms in just 1 hour, 2 times faster than Claritin, and stays strong for 24 hours. New Allegra gel caps. Nothing's faster. Nothing's stronger. Among OTC oral antihistamines, refers to first dose only. Starts working in 1 hour. Use only as directed. Visit Allegra.com.
Hey, it's Flo, and this is my impression of a coach giving the ultimate pep talk. Listen, the proper technique is going to Progressive.com so you can see Progressive's direct rate with our competitors' rates, even if we're not the lowest, like we practiced. And remember, no matter what happens, the important thing is to try and save some money out there.
Thanks, Coach.
Man, I love this job.
Compare rates and save at Progressive.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations.
Congratulations to the Adelphi Panthers from New York, who claimed back-to-back NCAA Division II women's lacrosse titles with their 5-4 win over Lock Haven. The win, in a rematch of last year's finals, gave the Panthers their 5th title in 7 years and 7th overall. That's This Week in the NCAA. I'm Kevin Kugler on Westwood Walk.
Hi, this is Everett George. You visiting? Yeah. I didn't practice this one.
You don't want to do that one?
Yeah.
Revs Friday Night Live as the Revs get set to host the Somerset Patriots here on Memorial Day weekend. Back here inside our Brooks Robinson Plaza studios. And finally, after making him listen to us for the first segment, Shawn Hill can hop on the mic. And Paul, a bunch of stuff to get to with Shawn, huh?
Yeah, there's
one of the most interesting cats in this clubhouse.
I think so, and there's 2 reasons why Shawn Hill is our in-studio guest for this week's show. First and foremost, it's not his night to pitch. That's always fun. got a nice bullpen session in with Mace today, so thanks for coming up here after that. So that worked out nice schedule-wise, but if you want to be around some interesting, unique things in baseball, just stick close to Shawn Hill, because he's got some cool stories in his major and minor league career of things he's been around. And we're going to talk about your first professional at-bat for the nearby Harrisburg Senators. Yeah. And we joked a little tongue-in-cheek that you haven't gotten great run support so far this season. Maybe we put you in the 8-hole, 9-hole. You could swing the bat a little bit yourself, because your first professional at-bat in Double-A, Harrisburg, in 2003, you came up with the bases loaded, and you hit a grand slam up in Harrisburg against Altoona. Do you remember who you hit that off of? Do you have any other details? What was going through your mind as you stepped to the plate and as you were rounding the bases there?
That was I actually got rained out the night before, so we ended up playing doubleheader. That was my first game. Obviously, just got called up in August from Brevard County from A-ball. They intentionally walked our catcher, the 8-hole hitter, to get to me. It makes sense, but 2-1 count was actually my first swing, and it was off of John Van Manscoten, who was kind of their stud.
He played here in 2011.
No. Did he? No.
See, that's why I couldn't find. We had the factoid that it was against Altoona and in Harrisburg. We couldn't find who it was against. Okay. John Van Manscoten had a terrific, Darrell, 6 weeks with the Revolution. He came here about this time of year in 2011 and ended up getting picked up by San Diego and went to AAA. Sure. And
an impressionist as well, as we found out.
He impersonated everybody's batting stance.
Yeah. He was quite the hitter himself.
And that's funny, because he was a good hitting pitcher as well, and when he was at Kent State, he was a hitter and ended up being drafted as a pitcher by the Pirates. He changed course, so that's amazing. And now there's a fact for next year's media guide we have Shawn Hill again. But you have to get it in there even if we don't. I mean, that's amazing. So it was off John Van Manscoten, who was who was a big prospect with the Pirates back then. So that's an amazing story. It had a Revolution connection we didn't even know about.
Did you ever run into him then and chat about it or anything?
No, but my roommate in Harrisburg, who was my roommate earlier that year as well, was Chris Young, who was previously with the Pirates. And he would roomed with Van Manscoten prior to coming to the Expos. So he was able to kind of give him the business about it afterwards.
Chris Young, the enormous pitcher.
Yeah,
Chris Young?
that one, 6'10". So
he went to Princeton too.
Yeah.
Smart guy.
So they kind of got the roundabout way, getting back and forth between Van Manscoten, kind of getting the business from him. So that was it.
I told him I didn't want to talk too much about it beforehand because it would kill the spontaneity, and that's perfect, So when we put this version of this story on paper, that'll be a good one that we can include JVB on that. And you hit a home run the following season, 2004. You were also in Harrisburg. Now we couldn't find out where that one took place. Where did that one happen, and who was that off of?
That was in Harrisburg as well. Okay. At the time, not really a great story, but turned into one a couple years ago. That was off of Pat Mish. He was with the Mets, I believe, at the time, or possibly the Giants. There's one, too. He played for both in the meantime. And then 2 years ago, I was in Toledo, and he was my teammate there in Toledo. So I hadn't brought anything up, mentioned something about playing against him back in the day. Quickly got the cold shoulder real quick.
Yeah,
he remembered it, but that was a day game in Harrisburg. The only thing I remember about it was like 15 pitch at bat or something. He was throwing the kitchen sink at me.
You're a hitter. You sure you don't want to hit ninth?
I would love to. I mean, I honestly missed the National League. That was one of my favorite parts about it was being into the ball game. That aspect of it kept you a little bit more intrigued, engaged, I should say. So I mean, I really think that's part of baseball.
I remember once after a Phillies game, Cliff Lee pitched, and he pitched a good game, and he, I think, had a single and a sac bunt, and they were interviewing Michael Young after the game, and they said, Cliff, it's not just enough to pitch well. He wants to have a good game.
Yeah.
Is that the way you approached it as a hitter in the National League?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to 2007, unfortunately, the whole season I was forced to bunt almost exclusively after I tore my left shoulder. So it kind of changed things a little bit there. But so as far as getting hits and that kind of stuff, that became very much secondary objective. But bunting was drilled into our head. And I believe that I don't have a single missed up bunt. I fouled one off or here or there, but I got the job done. And that was something that I did take pride in, that when I had a specific job to do, I got it done. When it came to a little, icing on the cake, if you will, that was something else. But like I said, with the injury with the shoulder, I wasn't really able to do a whole lot. But in the minor leagues, that was something that I did take a little bit of pride in, and I felt like I had the advantage going into the game because chances were I was a little bit better offensively than the other pitcher.
Right. And you had a couple big league knocks, to your credit, too. Where were those, and who were they off, if you remember?
The first one was off of, I think, Jamie Wright with the Yankees. That was my first one at 2006. And then the game I tore my shoulders, I actually had 2 hits in the same game, and the second time I was on is when I tore my shoulder. That was off of Scott Olson, who I think I faced like 5 times that year. But subsequent times I was forced to bunt the whole time. So,
right. Do you remember the ballparks? Was the hit off right in Yankee Stadium?
No, that was RFK.
RFK
and
during
then,
the interleague series.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that 2006 series in RFK.
Okay.
In the next segment.
Yeah.
I've got a photo I want to share with you.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
I can only. I have a feeling I know what it's about.
Yeah. Yep.
And then Olson was down in Miami at the old Dolphin Stadium.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's interesting. So both of your major league hits, or the 2 games where you got major league hits, came in now defunct football stadiums that were terrible places to watch baseball.
Brutal.
How bad was it to play in like the Dolphins Stadium, for instance?
It was. I mean, the worst part of it, the field was fine, the surface was fine. The worst part was the atmosphere. Yeah. I mean, there's just nobody there. Even Friday night, weekend games, there's just no atmosphere there. So that was the worst part. You just felt like it was kind of a glorified spring training game. Even, obviously there's more at stake, but getting the energy from the crowd was completely absent. So, I mean, in RFK, at times, we kind of suffered the same thing.
Right. I think with RFK, it was obviously probably not a great facility for baseball, older stadium, but that first couple years when the Nationals were new, was there at least some energy in the ballpark because it was new to DC, or did that
hit and miss?
That stadium is so cavernous, could it just kind of swallow it up?
Yeah, it was.
The fans were far away from the field because it's a football stadium.
I think the biggest thing was like when we had the Yankees in town, Cubs, Braves would come in, those kind of teams.
Right.
We had 30,000, 40,000 teams. We had people. When we had the Yankees, we were 50,000 each night of that weekend.
A lot of people that are Yankee fans, Cub fans, Met fans, Brave fans that live in D.C., unfortunately, because the Nationals were still building that fan base.
I mean, we were new coming back there. There wasn't a lot of history, short-lived history there. A very transient city, so you kind of understand it. At the same time, didn't make it great to play there just for that aspect of it. That being said, you can already see that with the new ballpark, the team's starting to come around. They do have that support now. But in the infancy of it, it was pretty slim.
Right. I've never been able to ask a player this, but what was it like being with a major league organization that moved and going from Montreal, where you debuted in 2004, to Washington in 2005? I mean, that's got to be unsettling on its face, but then you're Canadian, so you probably enjoyed very much being able to play in Montreal, and then you had to move to Washington. What was that like?
I mean, it was tough in a sense, but unfortunately, when we were with Montreal, we got kicked out of our spring training facility when Loria sold us to MLB. Mm-hmm. So we had already kind of been uprooted once. So that was kind of a somewhat of a transition experience. The only thing that I think made it a little bit easier for me was I missed all of 2005, which was our first year in D.C., with my first Tommy John. So I was in Montreal, in 2004, missed all of 2005, so I'd really kind of missed that first year of transition and all the newness of it. I came in about a month and a half in to 2006, so it was already, I mean, a year in, but it was somewhat established.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I would have absolutely loved to have stayed in Montreal. You know, still my grandparents there, that kind of stuff. My family originally from there, so it would have been great. But it was just so dreary at the end there that it was inevitable.
Right. And anybody I've ever talked to in baseball that played in Montreal never had a bad thing to say about it. The struggles of the Expos, the small crowds, Jeffrey Loria, obviously at the end having his eye on purchasing another team, which became the Marlins, the lack of TV games, everything that kind of contributed to the demise of that franchise and the dwindling crowds was talked about at length, you know, back in the mid-2000s. But any player I've ever talked to that played in Montreal, not only did they not have any bad things to say about it, I mean, they loved it. I mean, it was a great city. Yeah. Obviously, you didn't have to worry about rain delays, but, you know, a great city, a cultured city, really basically the only spot in North America where it's kind of that European culture and,
very
you know,
so.
a very kind of cool modern city. Is that the way you saw it?
Yeah, I mean, I went up there as a kid every year for the holidays and that kind of stuff, visit my grandparents. It's a fantastic city. Yeah. I think the only drawback was the facility was just not up to par. Still isn't. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do if they do try to go back there. In fairness, it's a hockey city. I mean, I think there's enough fans there to support a baseball team, but it's a hockey city.
Right.
So I think that's just the main thing you're fighting when you're there. But as far as the city goes, the people, the atmosphere when things were going well, it's a top tier city.
And certainly they would never be more popular than the NHL in their city. But do you think with the right ownership group, having the games on TV, maybe a modern facility, that baseball would work there long term? That's been talked about.
Yeah, I think so. I like I said, the facility's just not up to par.
Right.
The location's not the greatest, but it's not the worst either. I mean, they have access to it with the subway and that, but they just need something fresh. And if it was marketed a different way, Toronto's kind of in the same boat right now. You know, when I was watching them, we were getting 50,000 people a night during the World Series runs.
Right.
And now they're getting 15, 20 a game if they're lucky. You know, I think it's just the same thing. They're fighting the hockey crowds, and it's whether it's a marketing thing. Just they need something fresh to kind of get the city re-involved.
Right. And you're one of just 4 native Canadians to have played. Apparently. We talked about this before we went on. Yep. You're one of just 4 native Canadians to have played for both the Expos and the Blue Jays in the major leagues. Denny Boucher, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep.
And then Matt Stairs and Rob Ducey, who were hitters as well as yourself. And, you know, you said that despite growing up in Ontario, your family was from Montreal, so you were not a Maple Leafs fan, you were a Canadiens fan.
Yes.
And then you grew up, however, in Ontario, so obviously had to be a dream come true not only to get to the big leagues, but also play for both Canadian teams. And we'll talk about the circumstances of your second stint with Toronto after you were here in York in our next segment. But which was the childhood team, Montreal or Toronto in a baseball sense?
Toronto for me.
Toronto. So it's Montreal hockey, Toronto baseball.
Well, my family's from Montreal, but they were, you know, again, hockey city.
Right.
So they came down with the hockey roots. And then for me, it was essentially I got into baseball when I was 4 or 5 or whatever, and I latched on to the Jays. So that was kind of a secondary thing for my parents. But yeah, I was diehard Joe Carter, Robbie Alomar, John Oldred, all those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Alouettes or Argonauts.
That's pretty amazing.
Pass.
Canadian football, as the old Seinfeld joke goes, Kramer's only interested in Canadian football.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that it worked out for you like that. And we'll delve more into that after your time in York and getting back to Toronto in the next segment. But what was your experience in hockey? Did you play hockey at all as a kid, or did you realize very early that you were throwing the ball a lot harder than your friends and other kids in school, and you went with baseball from there?
To an extent. I was my parents basically, when I was 3 or 4 or whatever, I tried soccer one year, hated it, ran around like a little psycho and just hated it.
That's understandable.
I mean, I was 3 years old or whatever, but the following year, may have even been the same year, summer or whatever it was, and tried t-ball, loved it, and it was that simple.
The hitting started early.
Yeah, I mean, you put it on a tee, it couldn't get much easier.
So did JVB, apparently.
Touche.
Yeah.
Hockey, though, I think I took to baseball so quickly. They just that was my sport. So I'd never got into organized hockey. The further I went up playing baseball, it kind of became apparent I was like the one kid that wasn't into organized hockey. Played a bunch of street hockey, pickup, pond hockey, that kind of stuff, but never ever got into organized. Somehow, some way, I don't know.
To each his own.
Yeah.
All those stereotypes about Canadians, just for not all hockey players. All right, we'll take a break here with Shawn Hill, and then we'll come back. He is the all-time Revolution leader for consecutive scoreless innings. That was in 2012, and if that wasn't good enough, had a really good ending to that season for Shawn, and we'll talk about that when we come back next on Revs Friday Night Live.
Security in life isn't something you just wish for. You build it with a strong financial plan. Start with Northwestern Mutual. Together, we'll design a disciplined and balanced approach to financial security, because reaching your goals is something we both want to work toward. To learn more, contact me, Dan McGarry, at my office on the Square in York. Look for the blue awnings. Who's helping you build your financial future? The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Brews and Skews, presented by York Traditions Bank, is a free admission carnival of food on the Brooks Robinson Plaza, Saturday, May 30th from 1 to 6 p.m. Begin your vacation season with a good time and staycation, packed with food on a stick, craft brew, and Revolution Caliber entertainment. Rockin' bands brought to you by CGA Law Firm play the stage all day. Come with your crew or bring the family to Brews and Skews, a free admission event presented by York Traditions Bank. Visit brewsandskews.com for the latest event info, and we'll see you May 30th.
Everyone can play at Heritage Hills Resort, the region's #1 year-round resort. Only Heritage Hills offers 2 championship golf courses, 2 restaurants, a 60,000 square foot athletic club, mini golf, kids club, laser tag, a full-service spa, and much more. Don't forget to ask about our Passport to Perks program for big savings. Conveniently located just 1 mile off the I-83 Mount Rose exit, bring your friends and family to the Central PA Resort where everyone can play. For more information on Heritage Hills Resort, visit everyonecanplayhh.com today.
Want to learn to skate? Want to suit up and learn how to play some hockey? Come to the coolest place in town, York Ice Arena. Learn to skate programs are now available for all ages, for every skating ability. Kids of all ages will learn how to feel comfortable on ice, how to stand, and perhaps most importantly, how to fall properly. Class levels range from beginner to freestyle, where you'll learn basic jumps, spins, and footwork. Classes are taught by York Ice Arena skating instructors from White Rose Figure Skating Club. No skates? No problem. A skate rental is included in your registration. Or get on the ice for our York Ice Arena hockey programs. York Ice Arena coaches will focus on teaching proper techniques needed for anyone interested in playing hockey. Rental equipment is available for beginning players, both boys and girls. So get on the ice. Learn to skate. Learn to play. Sign up now. Group skating lessons and beginners hockey programs are forming now. Plus, York City residents get a 50% discount. Register today. Go to yorkskate.com and click on program info. York Ice Arena, the coolest place in town.
This is Bo Vaughn of the York Revolution. Catch the Revs all season right here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
Back here on Revs Friday Night Live here in our Brooks Robinson Plaza studios here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK. Paul Braverman and Darrell Henry here, or WOYK, as Fovon would say. Having some fun with Shawn Hill, touching on his interesting career and journey through baseball. Plenty to talk about with him. So we'll pick it back up with your first stint with the Revolution. 2012, you're coming back here. You're coming off injury. A couple relief appearances don't go your way, but everybody knew you were a starter. Yep. And then you do start, and you throw 27 2/3 scoreless innings, which established a franchise record that has not been threatened since and probably won't be threatened for a very long time. And then the Toronto Blue Jays pick you up, who you had already been with Toronto, after Washington, after San Diego, after Montreal, where you made your debut. And then you're back with Toronto after you put together that stretch here. And you go to AAA Las Vegas, and then things really got interesting. And you're going to have to tell this story from the beginning. I've only gotten bits and pieces of it and the gist of it over the years. But you're in AAA with with Las Vegas and the Toronto system and the PCL. And then of course, you're part of the senior men's national team for Team Canada. Yep. And you temporarily, or so you thought, leave the Las Vegas club.
Nope, season was over.
Season was over?
Season was over.
Okay, so now that I've already screwed up the story, the AAA season had ended, and then you go with the Canadian national team.
Yeah.
Okay, pick it up from there.
Joined the Canadian national team. I mean, I was only home for 5 or 7 days, something like that. We met up in St. Pete's, Florida. We were there for about 3 days, like our spring
camp,
training kind of thing. Yeah. Just to get together, have a couple exhibition games against some local college, I think St. Pete's College. So a couple guys threw on that. We fly over to Germany. This is for the WBC qualifier. I think we got there on like Tuesday. With the time change, it was like Tuesday night or something like that. I threw on Thursday. I threw the opener on Thursday afternoon or night in Germany. I was to be the best man at my buddy's wedding, high school buddy's wedding, on Saturday back in Toronto. So I threw on Thursday, left Friday, flew back, was the best man at my buddy's wedding with the intent to potentially fly back to Germany on Monday or Sunday night, depending, to help out and be available if they needed me for the last game. So I left all my equipment in Germany with our clubby. I basically flew back with my backpack. I just needed a suit once I got to Toronto. At the wedding, I'm at the reception at the head table, and about halfway through the night, through the reception, I get a text from my agent saying the Jays might need you in Baltimore.
Yeah, but how was the chicken?
Delicious.
Yeah.
I think I actually had steak, to be honest. But
hey, that's a relief. Yeah.
So I get that text, and I'm one of those just not quite sure what the heck he's talking about. I had already shut it down mentally. I was done with the WBC stuff. They had already told me I couldn't go back based on tournament rules. I was not allowed to throw, so I left my stuff there for no reason.
The Shawn Hill's baseball equipment still floating around Germany?
No.
Is it on German eBay?
I tracked it back down eventually, but it took a little while. So I got the text, and shortly after I got a phone call from the farm director saying, we got you a flight tomorrow night at 8 or 9 o'clock, whatever it was, into Baltimore, and you'll meet the team Monday morning or afternoon at the field. Kind of okay, and he said you might start Tuesday or Wednesday. Just be ready. I just pitch on Thursday, so it shouldn't have been a problem. Get there, I've got nothing. I've got one glove that my parents happened to have in the basement that was left over. I had my agent.
Was it like a glove from when you were a kid that had like Cal Ripken's Jr. name on the palm or anything like we had?
We had a couple of those, but thankfully they had one of my ones that I had used a few years prior. It was beat up, but it worked. My agent had overnight shoes and all that stuff. The clubby's given me everything from underwear to socks. I didn't have running shoes, nothing. I basically had a tux type of thing for the wedding. So I mean, I had from scratch everything there. So it was an interesting little whirlwind.
That's quite a story. So you did not pitch in Baltimore.
No.
And then you went back with the team to Toronto.
Yes.
Where the last weekend of the regular season, they're playing the Yankees. You get into that game.
Which was a surprise as well.
You get into that game after there was an injury, correct?
Yeah. Ricky, I was supposed to pitch again. I was, back up for the same two guys that did pitch in Baltimore for the following series against Minnesota at home. So on Saturday, I was basically shut down, semi-shutdown mode. Ricky Romero's pitching, gets hit by a line drive in the third inning, I believe it was. They call down, and he's still in the game, but they call down, and sure enough, it's me. So I start getting loose. He goes out, throws one more pitch, gets a line drive double play, gets out of the inning. We're all thinking and hoping then, all right, he'll be fine, shake it off, go out. They call back down, I'm in the game. So, I mean, it was one of the situations where I didn't really have time to think about it. It just get ready, get loose, react, and go out, and ended up going 3. We came back, took the lead. I got the win, of all things. So it was just one of those. It happened so fast, you didn't have time to think about it.
Yep, you get the win, and here's another stat/milestone you might not be aware of. You were the first former Revolution pitcher to earn a win in a major league game.
Did not know
so
that. Yeah.
3 years later, here we are. Congratulations on that. Andy Pettit took the loss that day, so that's pretty cool. So it's a great story that, you had your second go-round in the majors with Toronto. You went from the Atlantic League to a major league roster within one season, which is very rare. It's only happened 3 times in our franchise history. Julio DePaulo, with his call-up to the Orioles last year, was the third. You were the second. So it's just a tremendous story. But all of your stories, from minor league grand slams to that unbelievable story, they're all good stories. So, obviously it's emotional when you are injured, you miss a season, and then you fight all the way back, and you've done that twice. Now, the both times really, you got back on a major league mound after missing a lot of time with an injury. I'm sure the first time it was emotional, but what were the emotions like on September 29th, 2002 in Toronto when, it was with a organization that you were a fan of and already had history with, and B, presumably, in your home province, home area, and presumably in front of some family and friends. It had to be a cool moment.
Funny thing about that, a little tidbit you ended at, family didn't show up because I wasn't supposed to pitch. Even my wife was on the highway as I was getting into the game. But it was, the emotional aspect, it wasn't like this big deal that I was pitching for the Jays again, because the first game that I was with the Jays back in 2010, that was kind of that moment for me.
That's the big coming out party. It's got to be big.
A little bit.
It's got to be big news up there when any Canadian is in the major leagues in Toronto, let alone a guy from Mississauga, from Ontario.
Yeah, to an extent. And there's some local following and that kind of stuff. Not huge, but there's some. But for me, it was the biggest aspect for me was the fact that I had 4.5 years misdiagnosed with the thoracic outlet and all that kind of stuff. The nonsense that I had to go through, the unnecessary surgeries that at the time we thought was the right course of action. But basically going through all that, I was about to retire before I came here in 2012, before I had the surgery, because nobody could tell me what was wrong. So getting back in 2012 to the big leagues was, to me, that was the biggest thing to overcome all that. And it was one outing. But the fact that I was able to get back there, regardless of circumstances, just that plain fact was probably the biggest thing for me.
And what's it like to play for your country and play on the Canadian men's national team? And the second part of that question is there a chance we could lose you if you're still with York later on this season for some international tournament qualifier type things? I thought I saw that was in the cards. That was in the cards.
Yeah, the Pan Am Games are actually up in Toronto this year. So yeah,
we might lose you for a few starts. Yeah.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
I do have the intent to try to play in that if the situation allows. They haven't solidified a roster. I don't think they've had to get permission from teams yet for myself or anybody. There's just a preliminary roster at this point, but
we'll let you go. Don't worry.
Appreciate it.
When it comes to club against country, you got to defer to country when you're called. But don't sweat that.
It really is a very different dynamic playing for your country, and there's a patriotic factor going into it, but it more than anything, it boils down to the guys in the clubhouse, and you really put aside the selfish goals. If you go 5 innings, give up 4, and you win, you tend to really not care a whole lot, as opposed to here an affiliated ball. those numbers matter.
You're not thinking about getting signed or moved up.
No.
It's just
I want to win that
the game with your countrymen.
I want to win that game. I want to support my teammates. If I strike out with the bases loaded and the guy comes up behind me, that strikeout's off my back. I don't care anymore because we scored or whatever the case may be. If somebody's struggling, you try to, as a teammate anywhere, you try to pick them up, but there even more so. I mean, you don't let them get down. And in a tournament environment as well, as opposed to a long, drawn-out regular season, you don't have the time for a down game, a down inning, a down at bat. So you tend to get a very focused group, ideally, in a good environment. But you really are playing for each other, and it becomes more of it feels like when you're young on a travel ball team, if you will, that dynamic.
I know what you mean, because that's as far as I ever got playing baseball.
But,
so yeah.
You got all your buddies.
Right.
You're there for each other, and you're pulling for each other no matter how things are going. You don't care. Nothing else outside of the team really matters. And that to me is the cool aspect of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's enjoyable every time I've done it.
Just one more question for you, Shawn, and then we'll let you go and get back to the clubhouse for tonight's game. You live with your wife, Ashley, in Florida now.
Yes.
You've got a couple of little ones.
Yes.
Just like it in Florida. Are you still a Canadian citizen, though? Or are you
Canadian citizen? I have my permanent, my resident card, my green card down here. I may or may not ever become a citizen. I mean, right now I just have no need to.
Have Polanco help you with the test.
Okay. He's already got it.
Yeah, your English is your first language, so
Okay.
you're ahead of
I
the
gotta
game.
step
Yeah,
okay.
I think so, at least, unless it's French.
But no, I mean, I'll never lose that aspect. I mean, I'll probably have my daughters become dual citizens as well. That where we live right now, we're about 10 minutes from my wife's family. So plus it was where I was in spring training with the Expos and Nationals for years. So
hey, nobody can blame you. It's tough to get a throwing session in January in Toronto.
That was one of the
Florida,
determining factors.
Yeah.
Yes, trust me, that was a determining factor when it came down to it. Was the facilities up north are a little bare.
Yeah, you can get that done in Florida in the off season. So we'll let you go here, but this is not great fodder for radio because nobody can see us on the air here. But we were talking about home runs in the Washington Nationals organization, your minor league home runs, your 2 pro home runs in Harrisburg. Came up with Ryan Zimmerman, and you were both in the big leagues together on June 18th, 2006, when he hit his first walk-off home run at RFK against the Yankees.
Day game,
with the Nationals. Day game, you got it exactly right. And he just hit his 10th, which puts him like 3rd in National League history. 10th walk-off already.
Sounds about right.
Only in his early 30s. So dug up this photo that we took right off the screen on MLB Network when they were showing his first walk-off the other night after he hit his 10th. And he's
got our bullpen catcher neck deep in there.
He's diving into the scrum at home plate to celebrate after walking off the Yankees with a home run. I see number 41 there, Shawn Hill in the pile there. And we ever going to see those flowing locks again out of the back of the hat? It looks like you're doing what I'm doing, which is just shaving it short and keeping it low maintenance. But that is an impressive head of hair that I did not realize existed coming out of the back of that hat there 10 years ago, 9 years ago.
Short story. I started in 8th grade shaving my head. Yeah. No particular reason, just did it. Stuck with it almost exclusively until now. That was 06. Had Tommy John surgery in 04. Clint Everts and I rehabbed together. We were a week apart in our surgery date, so we rehabbed the exact same schedule. Both of us had shaved head. We both decided we're rehabbing in the offseason. We're down in Florida. What the heck? So we both let our hair go all of 05, the entire time. Got to in the minors. I still had it. Wasn't a big deal in 06. I was there for the 4 or 5 weeks, whatever. Got to DC, and I kept it for a little bit. There's a couple extra cards with the flow, and
I'll find him. Don't worry.
It's not pretty.
I'll find him, and I'll be on eBay after the game tonight, and those cards will be here in the physical sense the next homestand. Don't worry.
It came off not too long after that because on the plane couldn't wear a hat. I could get away with it with a hat all day long, but without a hat, it had no idea what to do because I had it shaved for 10 years or 12 years or whatever, and it came off not too long after that.
All right, talking minor league home runs, bizarre MLB call-ups, weddings, international play, baseball in Germany, and hair with Shawn Hill. I mean, I don't know what else we could cover.
Did we miss anything?
In a half hour? I don't think so. If we did, we might have you on again. But this was great. Thank you very much.
No, thanks for having me. It was fun.
That was tremendous. We'll take a break and Darrell and I will wrap it up when we come back. Thanks a lot, Shawn.
All the outdoor fun is at Heritage Hills Resort this season. Enjoy our newly renovated miniature golf course, and when you're done, don't miss our variety of games like cornhole and giant Jenga. Relax in our picnic area next to a warming fire pit while you enjoy delicious ice cream and snacks served right on site. And new this year, we are offering adult beverages. We've got an event every night of the week like trivia on Tuesdays and open mic night on Wednesdays, all summer long. And don't forget to ask about our cornhole and mini golf leagues. Visit everyonecanplayhh.com to learn more and see all that Heritage Hills has to offer. That's everyonecanplayhh.com.
Want to learn to skate? Want to suit up and learn how to play some hockey? Come to the coolest place in town, York Ice Arena. Learn to skate programs are now available for all ages, for every skating ability. Kids of all ages will learn how to feel comfortable on ice, how to stand, and perhaps most importantly, how to fall properly. Class levels range from beginner to freestyle, where you'll learn basic jumps, spins, and footwork. Classes are taught by York Ice Arena skating instructors from White Rose Figure Skating Club. No skates? No problem. A skate rental is included in your registration. Or get on the ice for our York Ice Arena hockey programs. York Ice Arena coaches will focus on teaching proper techniques needed for anyone interested in playing hockey. Rental equipment is available for beginning players, both boys and girls. So get on the ice. Learn to skate. Learn to play. Sign up now. Group skating lessons and beginners hockey programs are forming now. Plus, York City residents get a 50% discount. Register today. Go to yorkskate.com and click on program info. York Ice Arena, the coolest place in town.
Only one resort in York County offers golfers 2 excellent courses of challenging and enjoyable golf. Heritage Hills Resort and Springwood Golf will have you and your friends enjoying the challenge and the scenery while testing your skills. Visit us online to select custom golf packages for you and your group and take advantage of all that Heritage Hills Resort has to offer. Everyone can play at Heritage Hills Golf Resort. Visit everyonecanplayhh.com today to see all Heritage Hills has to offer, or go to heritagehillsresort.com.
This is Anthony LaRue of the York Revolution. Catch the Revs all season right here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
Nice, rousing rendition of Born to Run, and we'll have to run here in a few minutes. But thank you to our guest, Shawn Hill. Terrific long-form interview here on Revs Friday Night Live. That was terrific. It's been a good show, and man, he's led an interesting life in baseball, hasn't he? Top-notch stories.
That's more than I can do on a pregame show, so it's good that we have this program.
Yeah, Revs Friday Night Live here.
That'd be 2 weeks worth of pregames right there.
Yeah, that's right. Revs Friday Night Live on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK, and we'll end the show like we did a couple weeks ago here before every Revs Friday night home game with some plays of the week. And Darrell, once again for our second show here, it was a very good road trip and then a so-so homestand, but Johan Lamonte was swinging the bat pretty well in the series in Sugar Land, and the whole offense really had a nice showing in Camden and Sugar Land in the last trip.
Yeah, Lima was. We'll hear from him, and really up and down the order. I mean, the guys came back in general with much higher averages than they left town with. So we'll jump back to last Wednesday night. Big win for the Revs in Camden. This was the start of winning 4 out of 5 on that road trip, and after tying things in the 7th inning, this was Shawn Hill's start. They were trailing 1-0. They tied it then on a Boggs sack fly, so he left with the game tied 1-1. And with 2 outs in the 9th, Andres Perez coming up big. And another 1-2 to Perez. It's grounded up the middle, a base hit. Pounds around third. Throw home from Rocket is late. He scores. And Andres Perez, the RBI single with 2 outs here in the 9th. And the Revs have their first lead of the night, 2-1. That was a 2-1 win for the Revs, Paul. Just about as good as a walk-off. They did it in their last at-bat. It was on the road, but a last at-bat win, and they really needed that. They could use one like that tonight, to be honest with you.
I was listening in my apartment, man. I jumped off the couch.
So the next night, much more offense, and Andres Perez, that game on Wednesday was the start of a huge week for him, and man, was he ever dialed in on Thursday. 3-2. And a swing and a line drive down the line in left, and that's fair. His 4th hit of the night. And this will roll to the corner. Boggs around to score, and Perez is in with an RBI double. Part of a 4-for-5, 3 RBI night for Perez. The Revs would win that game in Camden on Thursday night. 8-3 was the final. Anthony LaRue got the win in that game. So from there, we did not sleep. We flew from Philly to Atlanta, hung out there for a couple of hours, flew to Houston, got lunch, went back to the ballpark to wait for the rain, and got rained out on Friday night. And the thing, even despite the exhaustion and everything, everybody coming off those 2 wins in Camden, they were ready to go on Friday night in Sugar Land. Matt Neal in particular, he was supposed to make that spot start. Of course, yesterday he would, but he was itching to go after sleeping on airport floors during the course of the day. But we did have to wait a day. And then on Saturday night in Sugar Land, unfortunately, a 3-1 loss in 11 innings. One of the trends of this team, they've kind of had a decent offensive game, followed by one where they don't score, followed by a decent one, followed by one where they don't score, and so on and so on. Saturday night, a tough one for the offense, but came back on Sunday, some early offensive production, and Johan Lamonta, one of the big hits. And Blacksher with the pitch. And a swing and a well-hit ball deep in the air in right center. Russo chasing it. It's gone into the Revs bullpen. And Limo leaves the yard. A 2-run shot to right center. And the Revs back in front, 3-1 here in the second. A lot of offense for them early that day. In the first inning, Eric Patterson had an RBI double. This was Sunday afternoon. Big day for Wilson Valdez as well, and he came up in the fourth. On the 1-2, and a swing and a ground ball the other way, and through into right field. Jones around third, he'll score on it. Wilson Valdez is 3 for 3. And an RBI single the other way. And it's a 4-1 lead as the Revs played a 2-out run here in the fourth. All part of a 4-2 win on Sunday. Rami Lewis, the victory there. He will start tonight, by the way. And Wilson Valdez in that game on Sunday, 4 for 5. An RBI, a run, and 3 stolen bases. So the Revs would even the series. And kind of the same path they followed in Camden. They dropped the opener, but then won the next 2. Well, in Sugar Land, they dropped the opener, won game 2, so they had a chance to repeat the feat in the rubber match of the series on Monday night. They did just that, and after falling behind 2-0 early, it would score a run in the 4th, run in the 5th on a Paniagua double to tie it, and in the 7th, it was Paniagua again looking to give them the lead. Swung on and grounded up the middle, and a base hit into center, pounds in to score. And Paniagua, who tied it 2 innings ago, gives them the lead here in the 7th. And up next was Mikey Reynolds. The 0-1. And a swing and a ground ball up the middle, and that's a hit. Jones around third, and he's going to score. 4-2. He slides in ahead of the throw. And Mikey Reynolds with a 12-game hitting streak. Yep, and they would add one more in the 9th inning. En route to a 5-2 victory. So haven't had the success at home yet this week that we were hoping to see carry over, but a 4-1 finish to that road trip, winning 4 of the final 5, 4-2 overall on that trip. And Paul, they coming in tonight, they're really one good week away from getting close to 500 and being right back potentially in the mix again.
Yeah, and I mean, the team's hitting home runs. We hit 4 in a loss the other day, which is not always the formula for success. But, we've had trouble leaving 2 guys on base at a time. It happened 3 times yesterday, so that's frustrating. But, just a couple of breaks go our way. We get one of those long balls with a guy or 2 on base, and, things can turn around pretty quick. I mentioned Lamonta had a good week, but Eric Patterson also smacked 2 home runs the other night, 2 in one game, and Perez went deep as well. Probably the hardest hit ball I've ever seen, at least to left field in this ballpark. I don't know if it was the hardest and the longest overall. We've had some long ones to center over the batter's eye, but I mean, that thing was freaking crushed. So Perez has a quick bat right now. Patterson and, seeing the ball well. It's just a timing thing. If you're going to leave 2 guys on base 3 times, you can't throw up a 0 the next inning. And that's really what happened yesterday. And it was so frustrating. And, 3-10 at home, 8 straight home losses. These things are bound to even out, and guys are going to run into one with 2 guys on base eventually. Hopefully starting tonight, Rami Lewis for the Revolution. It's an all-lefty matchup. Shawn Bierman, southpaw, is going to start for the Somerset Patriots. Good holiday weekend series between 2 rivals. This wraps around to Monday on Memorial Day, which is a 5 o'clock game, and looking forward to it.
Yeah,
love the weekends at Santander Stadium. So.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And as far as the hitting, probably not going to get a lot of fastballs to hit from Somerset staff if it's at all like it was at their place. You got to be patient against them, but it's a fine line. And Mace said this in the post-game story in the paper yesterday. Guys sometimes end up thinking too much, and then they end up getting defensive at the plate, and you don't want that to happen either. It's a really fine line.
Yeah, it's important to keep that in mind because Somerset, they can really pitch. They have a bunch of guys, hitters, that are on the interstate right now. We got a 132 in the lineup tonight, a 189 hitter in the lineup tonight for Somerset. They have not scored a lot of runs, but they've got plenty of guys with ERAs under 2. Including Mickey Story, who leads the league with a .93. So they can really, really pitch, and so can the Revs. They've been getting quality starts, so if there's ever a night to cash in those precious opportunities with guys on first and second, that goes twofold for this series, as if it wasn't already important, as we left 12 guys on yesterday. So.
And as we wrap things up, Paul, it is a guaranteed win Friday. One of these Fridays will be a win. Hopefully that'll be tonight.
2 for 2 on those so far with the ticket redemption.
But Deflatriots night, too. This is awesome.
Yeah, if you're listening and still on your way to the ballpark, if you're wearing a Tom Brady jersey, you get in for free. If your name is Tom or Brady, first name or last name, you get half off your ticket. And everybody in those 2 categories, jersey wearers and ticket buyers, if you're Tom Brady or have the jersey, you get a free flat Revolution mini football, courtesy of Wellspan. So, those minor league marketing people.
Well, very good. Well, this has been fun. Paul, thanks a lot. And want to thank Ray Jensen, who was on the board. He's over doing PA now. And big thanks to our guest, Shawn Hill, who, if I'm ever really strapped for material, I could take that and get about 2 weeks of pre-games out of it. So.
Yeah, good stuff, and that'll be tough to top when we do this again in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, for those of you heading in, enjoy the game tonight. We're heading in as well. I'm going to hop on over to the radio booth, and we'll join our normal pregame ritual, which includes Mace, coming up here in just a few minutes. Paul will join me in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and coming up next, we've got our state news from Radio PA, also our stock report with Your Money Now, and our national news from Westwood One coming up during the transition. And our normal pregame will start at 6:10, as is always the case on a home game night. So the Revs hosting the Patriots coming up, first pitch at 6:30, and Rami Lewis facing Shawn Bierman on the mound. That'll do it for this edition of Revs Friday Night Live here on Sports Radio 1350 WOYK.
First in York, first in sports. Your only local sports station. The new Sports Radio 1350 WOYK, York, Pennsylvania.